The Church Fathers teach us that the purpose of life is to know God. To know God not just in some academic or intellectual fashion, but to know God in the heart. And to know God in two ways. To know God, first of all, as Holy Trinity. That God is truly three persons, united, indivisible, and yet not confused. We cannot know one of the Holy Trinity without the others. And secondly, to know God in his incarnation as both God and man, that Christ is truly divine and truly human. The theological term for this is the Hypostatic Union, the hypostasis meaning person, that Christ is two natures. He has two natures, both human and divine. Of course, the whole Christian faith is founded on the reality of God coming to us in Christ, that Christ is truly God, the second person of the Holy Trinity. But we also must not lose sight of Christ as truly human. Yes, we believe that God knows our weakness and our sufferings. But in Christ, we have the assurance that God has lived as one of us, that he knows our weakness, our fragility, that as the Church teaches, he has been subject to the blameless passions of hunger and thirst, tiredness. He knows what it is to suffer, to be tempted there in the wilderness. But more than this, his humanity doesn't just set before us what it means to be a perfect human being, a model to aspire to. More than this, Christ perfects our humanity. Since he is sinless, he perfects our humanity and enables our very humanity to enter at heaven, to become one with God, to enter into a new relationship with God. Unless Christ is both truly God and truly human, there can be no salvation for any of us. And this theme of the two natures, divine and human in Christ, was really taken up at the Seventh Ecumenical Council. The council was really called in 787 in Nicaea, often called the Second Council of Nicaea, by Empress Irene. Leo III had instigated all kinds of persecution of the church. Persecution based on the use of images, icons. And churches were burned. There were murders. Crowds fought each other in the streets. And so Empress Irene called the Ecumenical Council together to establish, what does the church believe? Where are the boundaries of faith on this issue? Where is heresy? We should remember, of course, that there was another period not long after of persecution again over icons, and many of the fathers, the bishops who were there at the Seventh Ecumenical Council, were later martyred during a later wave of persecutions, giving their lives in defense of icons. And at the council, one of the great speakers in defense of the truth was St. John of Damascus. Now, St. John lived outside of the Christian Empire at this time. He lived under Muslim rule. And as a result, not only did he live outside of the politics of the empire of that time, but he lived a life of Christian faith, recognizing what it truly means to be stripped of the images. He recognized in the lives of Muslims what it meant to try to serve God without these holy images. And so when he came to the council, he was able to defend holy icons. First of all, he recognized that in the incarnation, all physical matter is changed, transformed. It enters into a new relationship with God, because Christ is truly flesh, human flesh. Not only does Christ's presence as one in the flesh, truly human, change our humanity, but it begins to change the whole of the created order. The whole created cosmos begins to change, begins to be redeemed in Christ. And St. John said, even the wood and the paint that we use in our icons is now able to be drawn up as an offering in our worship of God. There were some who accused the church, Jews and Muslims, of idolatry. But St. John said, no, we do not worship our icons as we worship God. We venerate our icons. We venerate the image of the one who is portrayed in the icon. We do not worship wood and paint. We venerate the one whose image the wood and paint represent and bear. Like a window into heaven, our veneration passes through to the eternal reality of heaven. And St. John said, this transformation of reality is ongoing. Icons are an image, a reminder of this process of transfiguration of the whole cosmos. And he says when we pass an icon, when the icons are in church or in our homes, we shouldn't simply ignore them, forget them and walk past them. We should learn to pause. Pause and acknowledge the icon. Make the sign of the cross before them. Kiss the icon, venerate them, say a prayer before them. Allow a space in our lives where we may encounter God's revelation through that icon. Because St. John says all icons, when they are blessed, become a potential moment of divine revelation, special revelation to our hearts. Just as flesh has become spirit-bearing, so too wood and paint has the potential now to be spirit-bearing, to be grace-filled, so that our icons, our images, may be filled with the grace of God, and our hearts may receive this grace when our hearts are open to the image. The Seventh Ecumenical Council, of course, proclaimed an excommunication on anyone who rejects holy icons. And even today, of course, the Jews, the Muslims, the Puritans amongst the Protestants have rejected this capacity for the created order to be drawn into the worship of God. So let us give thanks. Let our hearts truly be open to that encounter that we may have with the living God through holy icons. Let us not be concerned with the slander and the blasphemy of the world, which may call them idolatrous. For we know that we do not worship them. We worship God. We venerate his holy saints. We give thanks for these images which may teach us, lead us, guide us into the truth. When we see an image of Christ, the Theotokos, moments from Christ's life, or the saints, at that moment, God is leading us into the truth, the reality of our faith. And when our hearts are open, we may truly receive his grace.